Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Jason, and this is my presentation on the data science research project. My project area is predicting the outcome of tennis matches. So let's start. So the reason why we are predicting the outcome of tennis matches is for betting and selecting a winner given player and time. Its ultimate goal is to update in real time to predict future matches using past data. It is certainly impossible to predict with 100% accuracy due to human element and player inconsistency. However, an educated forecast based on past data is certainly possible through trial and error. We can compare different models with different metrics and compare between the models and see which one is performs the best. A model is considered as a good model if it's achieved good performance in validation metrics, which will be discussed later. And the model is good if it stands out between the models in terms of the validation metrics. And a model is good if it is easy to implement as well. So let's talk about the validation metrics. The first one that I want to talk about is calibration. Basically, it is the sum of all the probability guessed by the model over the correct outcome. It is an indication of the confidence of the model. For calibration, closer to 1 is optimal calibration. Bigger than 1 usually means confident guesses. The prediction is bigger than the true value. Oppositely, less than 1 means the model might be too conservative. So we have to find a balance between being overconfident and being a little bit too conservative. The second metric is accuracy. Basically, it is the correct guesses by the model over the total number of guesses made by the model. So one if correct guesses. So if the model guesses the player win and the player does win, and if the model guesses the player loses and the player does loses, it would be considered as a correct guess, and it is 0 if the model guesses incorrectly. This is pretty straightforward. So I will move on to log loss. So what is log loss? Log loss is an indication of how close the guesses are to the true value. It's often award confident correct guess. However, confident wrong guess is heavily penalized. The smaller the log loss, the better the model is. For example, a guess of 0 implies a bigger log loss than a guess of 0.9 when the true value is 1. In other words, it is like the sometimes error value of a model. So let's move on to the model. There are 4 models that are implemented. The first is a naive model and regression model, and then ELO model, and then bookmaker's consensus model. So the first one is the naive model and logic model. It both uses rank point that provided by the Association of Tennis Professionals, which is the ATP. Player gain points when they compete in tournaments. The points depends on the tournament and the position player finishes. For example, when Federer compete in a Grand Slam, he will definitely gain more point than someone just participate in a weekly tournament. In theory, a player with higher rank points than his opponent should be better than his opponent, because like when you have compete in a high level tournament, in theory you should be better than your opponent. When you finish in a better position than your opponent in recent tournament, in theory you should be better. So the naive and logic model predicts player with higher rank points to win in every matchup. The properties of this model is that it always predicts the higher rank player, as mentioned before. It is confident in its guesses. However, it completely relies on the data provided by the ATP, which is not very customizable. The second model is the ELO model. It doesn't use the data by the ATP. It implements ELO system from the beginning of the dataset. Player gain ELO and lose ELO according to the result. It is a completely new system without relying on the ATP. It is very customizable. You can customize the metrics and everything. Pretty much everything can be changed. The points of gain or loss by a player is based on the win rate of the player and the amount of matches played. For example, if a player is expected to win a match, then he should get not a lot of rank of ELO points because he's likely to win a matchup. However, if a player with a low win rate who proceed to win the matchup, then he will get a lot of rank points because of the unexpected result. Here's the win rate formula. In the ELO model, there are two K factor value that is used. The first one is the K factor model. So you can see from the points gain formula for the ELO points, you can see the K value dictates how many points the player gets from winning or losing in a matchup. In K factor model, K is fixed. The players start at 15,000 and they win and lose a certain amount of points depending on the win rate. This is completely dependent on the win rate, not the match played. However, in the second model, the 538 model, it offers a more dynamic K value. It is now dependent on the gameplays. The more established a player is, the less ELO point the player will gain or lose. For instance, Federer is an established player. His ELO should not drop significantly after playing 1,000 matches. Is the formula of K. The last model is the bookmaker's consensus model. This is like the textbook method. It uses the betting odds directly by betting companies. Because like real life money is on the line here, the bookmaker consensus model is extremely optimized. Professionals spend years to try to make model perfect. It is a good benchmark for all other models as it is as optimized as humanly possible. Like people spend years of trying to perfectize it, and hence it should be the benchmark for our models to try to achieve this kind of performances. Next is the result. Here you can see these are some ELO points of some famous player. For example, Nadal, Djokovic, and Federer. And you can see in their career, they have their ups and downs. And here's a table of the results of that was achieved. You can see from here that naive model and logic regression model isn't very accurate. It has a relatively high log loss, and the calibration isn't very good either. That is because naive model and logic model is just a basic implementation of a model that used as a lower end of the models that we have implemented. In ELO model K, it certainly perform better than the naive and logit model with a better accuracy and better log loss. However, we can see that from the 558 model that it has even better accuracy and log loss than the K model. In the second implementation of 538 model, I've changed some of the parameters so that at the start of a player career, it gains more point than the K factor. And after the player play hundreds of and thousands of matches, it will drop lower and lower, and to the point where it becomes lower than the K factor model. So in theory, this should be better than the first implementation of 538 model. As you can see here, it has a better log loss than the originally implemented 538 model. And the last model is the bookmaker's consensus model. It has by far the best accuracy, best log loss, and best calibration out of the models, because as I said, these models are created by professionals who spend years trying to optimize it. So this should be an extremely good model. So let's talk about the models for a second here. The naive model and logit regression model is very easy to implement. However, they are not accurate, and sometimes they are too confident in their guesses. For logit model, a single curve might not be the accurate representation between the ranks of win rate. It is also very hard to optimize and find the optimal metrics to put in the logit model. In the ELO model, it is not dependent. Its advantage is that it is not dependent on the ATB data. It is less confident, and it has better calibration and log loss. However, it is very hard to implement. Also, it is very hard to optimize because the K value can change. You have to optimize the K value and everything, and there's so many metrics to think about and to adjust between them to find an optimal result. For the bookmaker consensus model, as I said before, it is extremely optimized. It has the best performance validation metrics out of all the models. It is extremely good as a benchmark. However, it is, of course, this is not perfect. It is not transparent by the betting companies. The betting companies, of course, they would not like their way of making their models leak. So we don't know how they make the numbers, how they come up with this number. So it is impossible to improve on these numbers. We are just taking their data and use it pretty much directly. So in conclusion, my future work is that to keep pushing to a limit, to get closer and closer to the humanly possible benchmark, which is the bookmaker consensus model. I will improve each model to be a better fit. I think there's no other way but to keep trying with different parameters to fit in different models and try to see which one perform the best. And that would be the model that best model out there. Then yeah, this is pretty much it. Thank you for listening, and this is the end of my presentation.